Right. Well, so far, I got the. I'm using elastic bands actually to hold these planet gears up against the sun gear while I got them lined up properly. I thought the elastic bands was better. Anyway, I had no choice because I'm still printing the second ring gear, and I don't actually have the. I haven't printed the rings that hold the compression rings that go around the ring gears to hold them in place yet. So I had to hold them with elastic bands, and it seems to work quite well actually. So I got them lined up with the numbers and everything. I've actually got them upside down right now because I've been turning it actually. I've been spinning it. It does rotate. Yeah, well the one's normally at the top, isn't it? But yeah, it doesn't really matter. It seems to be. It still seems to rotate when you were spinning it. It comes to that position anyway. So yeah, it's coming together. As I said, I printed this pretty solid actually. So it's. Let me just pause a second. Hang on. Right. Yeah, I've got my scale out. Yeah, I don't think we really need to worry about the weight of elastic bands. They're not going to move much, but at the moment we've got 75.5. Well, let's ignore the 5.5. It might be the elastic bands. We've got about 75 grams with the sun gear, which I just actually scaled down. Initially, I scaled the sun gear down, which is the middle one, from 1 down to 0.78, but that wasn't enough. So I had to scale it down to 0.73. So I think it's, no, hang on, what was it? Was that right? No, sorry, 0.97. I scaled the sun gear down initially, and it wasn't sufficient. So I had to scale that sun gear down to 0.93. That was it. So it actually, because it was too tight, you know, basically what was happening, because it was so tight, the ring gear number 1, where it meets up at the beginning, there was a gap. There was a gap where the two halves of the ring come together. I couldn't close the gap because the sun gear was just too big, too fat. So yeah, and also don't scale, if you're doing this yourself, don't scale the Z-axis, otherwise you'll cause the gears to bind. All I did was scale the XY axis, which is the width and, you know, and directions that way and up and down. So all I did was scale the XY axis, and I left the Z axis alone when I rescaled the gears to fit properly. But initially, when I scaled the whole thing up, you know, when I scaled this thing up, it was the smaller gear set, which is basically like this size-ish, which is about that size. Put them together so you can see. So roughly that size anyway. That's what they started out as. So I scaled the whole thing up, including the Z-axis, to 1.73. So initially it was that size. Then I scaled XYZ, the whole thing, up to 1.73 times the size. And then when I found out there was a tightness on the sun gear in the middle, I scaled the sun gear down without the Z-axis, just the XY axis. I scaled that down to about total of about 0.9, or yeah, it could go to a 0.1, I suppose. But anyway, I brought it down to basically, so instead of 1, we need to go down to 0.90 really. I think it's a safer bet really, or 0.91 or 0.92. So then the sun gears seem to fit a lot better in the planet gears. I don't want to obviously scale the ring gear up, because that would mean I'd have to scale up the bracket, the other thing that goes around that as well. So it's not easy just to scale the sun gear down, because then it affects everything that's in between. So it's a lot simpler to do it that way. The other way would have been to scale down the planet gears, but that would have taken a lot more processing power, because there's 5 of those gears and it's a lot yeah, my computer struggles with the memory and all the polygons. So it was a lot easier just to scale the sun gear down than it was the planet gears. All that could be done, you know, but then yeah, whatever. But it might be better, I suppose, in the long term to make the planet gears slightly smaller, because the sun gear just take a lot of torque. It does seem to do a lot of the work, so it's probably better to have that slightly bigger than the anyway. But anyway, I just decided to go with that because my computer doesn't have a great deal of memory, and it takes quite a lot of processing to scale things. I tried importing some of these gears onto SketchUp actually, and it kept crashing on me. It just didn't have the memory. I'm using an older version of SketchUp though, so it could be that. So elastic bands hold it together really well, and at the moment I'm just waiting for another ring gear to go around. I've got to put 2 more ring gears and the outside rings that hold the ring gears in place. So I've got basically, well, this one's finished on the printer. When that's finished, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 more items to print. So, but the actual clips, that's the rings that go on the outside, like on this one, the little bit that's on the outside here, right? Those are what hold the planet gear rings in place. Well, those rings won't take long to print really. They're quite thin, so I don't think they'll be taking me all day. So yeah, that's why I'm at the moment. Sorry about the light, but it's supposed to be daylight outside. It's not very bright though. Anyway, that's it for now.